Hey out there, I wanted to do a quick lesson for you on how to get into playing chords on your guitar. This is oftentimes one of the things that is the ultimate goal for a lot of players when they start out, is to learn how to play chords and strum along and be able to accompany themselves on the guitar or accompany somebody else on the guitar. And with doing that, one of the things that I've seen happen is it's very easy to get frustrated when learning chords because there's a lot of nuance, a lot of little things that you don't see that go into making that chord sound just the way it needs to. So we're going to start with one particular chord that I like to use that is not the easiest chord at the beginning, but it's one that we can learn in partials. That means breaking it apart a little bit and bringing it back together. And when you do this and you take this approach, you A, don't get frustrated as easily, and B, you're able to learn how to play the chord probably in the best way possible so that it's going to sound good, no matter what the size or shape of your hand is. You're able to do this and get a good sound. So with that being said, what I want to do is I want to talk about the G major chord, and we're going to talk about one particular fingering for the G major chord that I seem to come across more often nowadays than used to be the case with guitar. And it's one particular voicing that I like to use myself that I've kind of become acclimated to, and it works very well in a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different songs, and it uses 4 fingers instead of 3. Sometimes you'll see the G major chord with 3 fingers as you're playing it, and I just happen to like this particular voicing of 4 fingers a little bit better. And so with that being said, I want to talk you through how to approach a G major chord on the guitar, and this particular fingering for the G major chord on the guitar. So with that being said, what I want to do is I want to start off with our pinky on the top string on the 3rd fret. So we're going to put it on the 3rd fret, top string, right behind that metal bar, right behind that fret, as close to it as possible without being on top of it. If we're on top of it, we're going to get that muted sound. If you're too far down this way, we're going to get a buzzing sound. So right there behind it, to get that clear sound. So right on your fingertip, right behind the fret is step 1, okay? So what I want you to do with this first exercise is I want you to sit here, and for about 30 seconds, you can set a timer on an iPad or on a phone or just any timer that you have. And what I want you to do is hold this fret down, just this one fret, and I want you to pick it over and over again for about 30 seconds. Now when you're doing this, your mind and your ears need to be concentrating on, am I making a good sound on the guitar, okay? And if you're not making a good sound, then reevaluate, figure out what you're doing, troubleshoot. And you can troubleshoot like with some of the things we just talked about. Am I on the fret? If I'm on the fret, I'm not going to be making a good sound. Am I too far down the other way where I'm going to be making a buzzing sound? Whatever you need to do is to get in that right spot. Now, even if you're in the right spot, if you're not squeezing down hard enough, then you're going to notice that it's going to buzz a little bit as well. So we need to fix that. So squeezing down hard enough right on your fingertip, right behind that fret. Okay, so you can see right here on my hand, top string, 3rd fret, and that's what we're doing right there. So what I want you to do is just play for 30 seconds. Listening to that note, making sure it's clear, making sure it's not buzzing, making sure it's just a real clear, good sound there on your guitar. Once you feel comfortable with that and you've done that for maybe a couple of minutes, maybe 3, 4, or 5 minutes, just concentrating on that one finger, I want you to add another finger in with it, okay? And we're going to add our ring finger in with it, and they're going to be kind of stair-stepping like this, right next to each other. Kind of like in a 3-legged race, the legs that you tie together, these 2 fingers are tied together for this chord, okay? And they're going to come down. Pinky, of course, is going to be right where it was on the 3rd fret, top string, and then our ring finger is going to come down on the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. Now something you're going to notice a little bit with the way your hand falls is that this ring finger is pushed back a little bit away from the fret. And one of the ways we have to compensate for that is we have to make sure we're playing right on our fingertip and squeezing down a little bit harder with this ring finger, pressing into the fretboard, okay? Now if you're doing that, you should get a clear sound right like that. If not, there could be a couple things that are going wrong. Most likely what the problem is you're not squeezing hard enough with that ring finger, pushing back into where your thumb is on the back of the neck and pulling into your body. Maybe even taking your elbow and pulling it in a little bit to your side will help kind of compensate for that lack of strength that you may be experiencing right there with that finger. So putting those two fingers down right there. Once you get these two fingers down, I want you to repeat kind of the previous exercise, but with these two notes instead of just one. So for 30 seconds, I want you to sit there and play second string, first string, or first string, second string. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're playing those two strings and squeezing down hard. Once you've done that for about 30 seconds and you feel like you've gotten yourself a good sound, then I want you to take a break for about 30 seconds or a minute, come back and do it again. Repeat this process kind of like you did with the first exercise for about 5 minutes. If you can make yourself do that for 5 minutes, just pressing down those two fingers, you're going to notice within a couple of days, probably, if not sooner, that you're able to hold this down a little bit more easily. Your strength in your left hand is getting better. Your calluses are getting developed on your fingertips a little bit more. All those things are happening that need to be happening, because this is a little different when you're playing chords as opposed to playing a single melody that we leave our fingers down for a split second like we've done on Ode to Joy and Amazing Grace and a few of those songs that we've learned. So with these two fingers squeezing down really hard, you're able to make that first part of that chord. So once you get this down, what I want you to do is we're going to move on to the other part of the chord. This is only part of the G major chord. When we play our top four strings one at a time, and when we pick a chord one at a time, we call that arpeggiating the chord. We're arpeggiating the chord here. That's the top half of that chord. Now what we want to learn now is the bottom half of that chord and what we need to do for that. So after you've done this, like I say, 5 minutes, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, back and forth, getting those fingers toughened up, that hand strengthened up, then I want you to go to the bottom part of the chord. And the bottom part of the chord is going to be fairly simple. You're going to have your index finger down on the second fret of the A string. So right there. And our middle finger is going to go down on the third fret of the bottom string. Now the tricky thing about this middle finger coming down, something that you don't see when you see this chord printed in a book, is that you don't want the underside of this middle finger to touch your fifth string. If it does, you're going to have that sound on your second from bottom string when you're trying to play your chord. So what I like to do is I like to have this finger propped up a little bit so that it's almost hanging halfway off the guitar neck a little bit here. So you're playing maybe in a slightly different spot than you're used to on this finger when you've played single note melodies, but you're just hanging off the edge of the guitar there, and that way you can get both those notes ringing, okay? So your first challenge with this second half of the chord is to make sure that you can get just these bottom two notes to ring together like that, okay? So like I said before, troubleshooting, making sure your middle finger is maybe hanging about halfway off the neck of the guitar so that the underside is not touching that fifth string and keeping it from ringing, okay? This might take a little bit of practice, a little bit of shuffling around, but once you get it, you should be able to make that sound with those two fretted notes right there. Now, of course, the other things to keep in mind, just like on the top part of this chord, don't play on the fret where you get that muted sound. Don't play too far down, you're getting that buzzing sound, but right behind the fret, right behind the metal bar as much as possible. And you should be able to get that with these two fingers fairly easily. It's not as uncomfortable as some chord shapes can have a tendency to be. So playing just this bottom two, what I want you to do is, just like you did on the exercises for the previous part of this chord, I want you to play those two notes for about 30 seconds. then take a break. Now, what we can do to maximize our practice time is after we play these two fingers, we're going to go ahead and give these two fingers a break, and we can come up to these top two fingers and work them out as well. 30 seconds, then back to the bottom two. The ultimate goal with what we're doing is to be able to put all four of these fingers down at the same time and play our G major chord. Now, that seems exciting, and it is exciting, but you don't want to jump into it right away because there's a lot of hand strength that goes into playing a chord with four fingers on it. And because of that, you have to make sure to develop this top half, develop this bottom half, get it strong before you start to approach it with all four fingers at once. So what I would recommend doing is go ahead and practice throughout the week for a couple of minutes every day, doing just the top part, doing just the bottom part. Do that for anywhere from 5 to 7 days. After that, after you feel pretty comfortable holding this chord down, holding this part of the chord down, then start attempting to put all four fingers down. Now, if 4 fingers is too much for you, maybe just try 3 fingers. Try the top 2 and try your index finger right here, okay? And just arpeggiate the top 5 strings. And you might be able to get a pretty good sounding chord right there. Once that starts to develop, put your middle finger down and go ahead and go for all 4 fingers, all 6 strings, okay? The same thing can be done opposite of that, and you can put just the top 2 down and the middle finger down and try to play that. Now, you're going to have a little bit of an issue with your second from bottom string being raised a little bit because it's not being pressed down, so you might even practice it so that you're going with that string muted right there, and that's another option you have right there. And this is actually, when you play it without that index finger down, this is a G5 power chord is what it is, which is another chord that sometimes gets substituted for a regular G chord as well. So, with that being said, I want you to take these exercises, work with them this week, try to do what you can to play at least the top part of this chord, if not the top part and the bottom part. And then once you've kind of gotten that pretty comfortable, I want you to try to put all parts together, the top part and the bottom part, and arpeggiate it like that, okay? If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll be more than happy to address them. Thank you so much. Bye.